This program is recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television.
There's that whole aspect of pain. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, does that hurt? And the beauty comes from, yes, it does hurt, but the ability to overcome what your mind perceives as completely not feasible.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Bayless for Chippewa Valley Community Television's Valley Talk. This evening we are here at the Ramada Inn downtown, and there is a demonstration of body piercing and of suspension of the body from various flesh hooks. It's a unique kind of demonstration. There's quite a community involved in this. Part of the issue here is to raise awareness of this technique and of this practice, and also to raise awareness of the need for proper safety measures throughout the entire industry. We're going to be taking a look at some of the suspensions, and we're also going to get to talk to some of the practitioners of the suspension, people involved in the community, and also some of the general public that have come down and what they think of this particular practice. So, we'll get you on the flip side. I'm here with Alexis Martin. She is with the Ritual Flesh suspension team. You are a piercer. You are also in charge of cleanliness and safety, correct?
Correct. That is what I do with our team. I pierce for the hooks. I mark the hooks, all the correct placement there. And then I'm in charge of maintaining safety as far as the suspendee and as far as everyone in the room, too. And then I check to make sure that everything stays clean, sterile, we don't cross-contaminate anywhere, and keep everybody safe and happy.
Sounds like you probably underwent some significant training to do that.
Actually, that's the funny part. I am not a body piercer by trade. I do not work in the body modification industry. I'm actually a registered nurse, so that's what I do. And I have a lot of in-depth training as far as bloodborne pathogens go, how to run an autoclave, how to check my spore tests, how to do all that, maintain cleanliness in general. So, yeah.
Well, so clearly the cleanliness issue is something that's important to you, and being part of this team, that's part of what you bring to it, as well as your comfort with the whole issue of the flesh hook and the ritual suspension. Being a nurse is probably really helpful for you, but I'm presuming that a lot of people in your trade don't necessarily have the kind of training you have.
That's correct. The wonderful thing, though, about the community as far as suspension goes, the people who perform suspensions, is that we learn from each other. We are always working together. We have online forums. We hold conventions all over the country and actually even internationally where we get together, we work together, we share tips, we share tricks, we share secrets, and we also talk about our failures. When things do go wrong, we say, well, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? And let's not do this again. And we like to educate ourselves. So that's a lot of people who are in the suspension community are piercers, are tattoo artists, but a lot of our team is not. And there are lots of people in the community who don't have any sort of prior knowledge. So that's what we're all here to kind of help each other out. And that's the big thing. We lean on each other. So,
well, you say you're not a tattoo artist or a piercer, except in this context. What drew you to the whole suspension community?
I remember seeing a suspension, God, it had to be like 15 years ago. I was about 10. I remember seeing it on like a TV show, like a whoa, what's going on here thing. And I was just like, that is quite possibly the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And I always had it kind of in the back of my head, like, this is something that I'd like to try, this is something that I'd like to do. And then I met my boyfriend and our team leader, Zuni, in a tattoo studio many years ago. And one day we just said, hey, let's do this. Let's start a suspension team. So we started talking to other people that we knew who were in the industry, other suspension practitioners, and we just went from there. You know, what should we buy? What should we do? And we travel and work with other teams. That's what we're doing here right now. We came up to work with Willow, and we go all over the Midwest and work with each other, and it's wonderful. So.
Well, this event is also about raising awareness of the whole suspension community and the issue. You say that you saw it beautiful. Can you describe, especially since you're so intimately involved, what is it that you think of as beautiful about these kinds of events and these kinds of activities?
There's that whole aspect of pain. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, does that hurt? And the beauty comes from, yes, it does hurt, but the ability to overcome what your mind foresees as completely not feasible. People look at things like this and they're like, oh my God, how can you do that? And it's just really a mind over matter thing. And it's so awesome to help someone, like if it's their first time suspending, to help them off the ground and those smiles that they see. And so often I get so tied up in the technicalities of everything. And I'm watching and making sure that everything's going perfect. And then I look back and I see the videos and I see the photos and I'm like, look at the whole time, everybody's got huge smiles on their face. Like, this is what we love to do. And it's just so much fun to help people conquer something like this. It now makes everything so much smaller. Every little problem in your life is so much smaller because this is something that you can do. I compare it a lot to this is my marathon, this is my skydiving. You wouldn't catch me running a marathon. Running hurts. Like, why would I run 24 miles? No. But I can do this, and this is fun, and this is therapeutic for me, and it helps me make all my little problems go away.
I'm talking with Dan Ashman. You are Willow's apprentice.
I am.
You are running around trying to make sure stuff is done right. How's the event going so far? We're still early in the event. How do you think?
I think it's going pretty good so far. We've got a pretty good turnout. We've got a lot of people here, and there's a lot of people suspending right now. So,
how many people are you going to see suspended tonight?
I think we're looking at 10 to 15 as far as I know. It could change through the night. We've got some sideshow stuff, I think, going on, and then my kavadhi performance. So,
what's a kavadhi performance for those that don't know?
Okay, so a kavadhi in Indian and Asian countries like Thailand is it's a ritualistic burden that they do. So it's more of a spiritual thing for them, but for us, we're just doing it as a performance tonight. It's going to be a big cage structure that comes down over me, and then we're going to stick spears down through into my chest and my back, and then I'm going to dance around, and it's going to be fun.
And carry the burden.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So you're also participating.
Oh, I am. That's going to be fun.
What kind of check do you go through for people that want to be suspended with the various groups that are presenting tonight?
Basically, the people that are suspending tonight are people that have done it before. We did do private suspensions before the show. That was more of just people that wanted to try it out, and we give them the time to get up and go. The people that are doing it right now get up real fast because they've done it before. They know what it's going to be like, so they just go up and do it, where a lot of people, their first couple times or their first time, it takes them a little bit of time usually to get up because it's a different feeling. They got to get used to that, so...
And you're there to help them and support them through that whole thing.
Yep, with the crews, there's people there to help them get up, console them, make sure that, they're having a good time and they can get up when they're ready. We don't push anybody to get up real fast. They just do it at your own pace.
are here watching the suspension demonstration. Have you ever seen a suspension demonstration before?
I have. I have seen what's called a pull, where you got hooks in the back of 2 to 4 people, but the one I saw was between 4 people, 2 hooks and 1 guy here, 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 all pulling different directions. Oh, wow.
But this time we've seen a couple of people suspended, one person from their knees, one person from her arms. You know, what was your impression of the presentation?
I am way too girly to do that myself, but I respect them for it.
What draws you to some event like this?
The girls. I like tattoo chicks.
Absolutely. Well, and it's quite a community. A lot of people are not aware of this kind of thing going on. It's actually kind of a spiritual practice for a lot.
Oh, yeah. There's another thing the white man stole from us. Just kidding. But
no, I mean, you know, share too. You know, it's not just steal, right? I don't know.
No, but it is awesome to see how this kind of movement has progressed and evolved even. I mean, you know, I might have joked about that, you know, when I'm talking about like Sundance from the Southern cultures and Native Americans and, you know, just coming from just hanging on bone hooks to all of a sudden you got people hanging by the knees, hanging by their elbows. We're going to see even crazier stuff tonight. I mean, the sky's the limit right now. Sky's the limit.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, a number of us have heard of this kind of thing as spiritual practice, like the Sundance and the native peoples and years ago. But this is an ancient practice, and it's still attracting people, and it's still speaking to people, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and it always will. I mean, imagine like 20 years from now, what's going to be a thing that we're going to come watch like this?
I understand that you guys are also trying to raise awareness about trying to bring the rest of the industry up to code, a certain level of practices, of safety, etc. And have you been active with that issue?
I have been. I'm very, very proactive in as far as the tattoo community, and I really push for safe piercing, safe tattoos. And I think that that's very important because anywhere you go, any hobby that you have, you're going to have somebody who's going to try to undercut you, and you're going to have somebody who's going to take shortcuts, and ultimately those shortcuts lead to people getting hurt. And
the wrong kind of hurt.
The wrong kind of hurt, yes. And we don't want that. And I think that right now I haven't been too involved in legislation or anything, passing legislation. I hope to be in the future, but I'm a very, very pro safe piercing, safe tattoo. And that's the thing about this. Suspension is dangerous. It is not something that just anyone can say, oh, hey, I think I'm going to hang my friends from some hooks in my garage. We've spent thousands of dollars and countless hours on this. And we want to make sure that we do it right, we do it safe, we do it according to the standards that we know, and we're always ever changing to make sure that things are safe. And I think that in the future we will definitely be pushing for more hard and fast legislation regarding suspension too, because it only takes one person to mess something up and then it's, you know, we're all done. Nobody else can do it.
Well, you know, and it sounds to me like the standards that you use are ones that you've developed based on the reality of the work that you're doing, huh?
It is definitely trial and error because, I mean, there's nothing like this in the world. There's nobody who manufactures equipment for what we do. We have to adapt equipment and hope that it works. And there have been teams that have dropped people. There have been times where crazy things happen, and we just all learn from each other and set the standards based on what we've seen works, what we've seen doesn't work, what works well, what doesn't work so hot, and then we just are always making sure that we're maintaining utmost priority is safety here, that we're maintaining all our standards very high.
Well, and so events like this are both raising the awareness of the issues, the safety issues, but also trying to get more people aware of the whole issue and spiritual practice that you were so attracted to.
This is true. I love to talk to people about suspending. I love to push suspension and say, hey, you know, give it a try or come watch. You know, it might not be for you, but come check it out. And that's the thing. People suspend for so many reasons. They suspend for spiritual clarity, for transcendence, for personal reasons. Some people experience this incredible endorphin rush and this wonderful high after suspending for weeks and days where they just feel on top of the world. I personally don't get that. I like to suspend because I like to see everybody else's face. I like to see the shock and I'm kind of more into that. But yeah, I love to do these kind of shows. I travel all over the Midwest and perform with my team. Every time I perform, there's someone who's never seen anything like this before, and it's just so fun to open people's eyes to this practice, because suspension's been practiced for centuries in various cultures and tribes, and most notably Native American, the Sundance or the Okipa. They practice suspension there, and it's great. I love it. I mean, and I understand that it's not for everybody. I understand that not everyone is interested. Some people are squeamish, but it's always nice to see people who have never seen anything like this before. It's always wonderful to kind of open their eyes. And a lot of people walk away saying, wow, this was so beautiful. I've never seen anything like it before, and I didn't even know it was possible. So that's fun.
What are your impression?
It's great. Love it. It's a good show.
I think it was a really great idea for Willow to put on this show. Things like this are very important for the Chippewa Valley. Not a lot of times do you see this type of event, so it's actually really well thought out, really planned, and yeah, it's really, really great.
What draws you to this kind of a presentation? Are you folks in the piercing community, or is it just something else that attracts you to this?
I think suspension is pretty much an art form in itself. I'm an artist, so I appreciate that. Piercings, everything in that nature are an art form, so it's great to be able to see something like this. Again, you don't see this very often, so a lot of time went into this, and I think it's really great.
What about you, Matt?
I just love it. This whole thing seems so taboo to most people, so it's amazing that a show like this is in Eau Claire.
Yeah, it kind of enlightens what one would consider a shadow side, and you realize there's nothing wrong on the other side.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, this is a unique kind of event, but it's not the only one that's been around, and there's clearly quite a community around this. And do you folks consider yourselves part of that community, or are you interested in joining the community?
Pretty much. I would say that the body suspension piercing community, it's small in Eau Claire. People that don't understand it, they aren't sure how to approach the subject, but when you come to events like this, it really opens your eyes. It makes you realize that it is an art form and it should be appreciated. And as an artist, I appreciate that. We've put on events in the Chippewa Valley, and that's what it's about. You just have to pretty much put on the events, take the time to get the bodies out to experience it pretty much. And once people kind of see this type of event, they kind of open their minds a little bit, and it's a good thing.
I am able to talk now with Jasmine Ellis. She is also part of the Ritual Flesh suspension team. She is a lieutenant, I am told. She is going to have hooks thrown in a little while, and she is going to be suspending later. and we will probably follow her activities throughout the evening. So, how long have you been a part of the team?
I have been about a part of the team since about April, May, in that area.
And what has drawn you to the whole issue of suspensions?
I am the piercing apprentice, so I'm actually learning to pierce in the shop as it is right now, and then I joined the team because it's great. I love it. I mean, it's part of a community, part of the piercing community and everything. So it's just another step towards my end goal of being a piercer.
And what do you anticipate you will experience? Obviously, when you go through this whole thing where they're going to put hooks in you and you're going to suspend, people will be grossed out by it. Some people will be shocked. Some people will be awed by it. But what's it going to be like being on the other side?
Being in the air?
Being inside, being the person being suspended. You've done this before?
I have. I've done this position before. I'm going up by my knees, so I've done it before. It's a great feeling. I love seeing everyone's emotions, and it's an interesting thing.
And as you're getting prepared, what kinds of things go through your mind?
I'm excited. I mean, I can't contain myself. I'm ready to go up, ready to get hooks again.
So this is just something that's a really neat experience for you. When was the first time you ever saw a suspension?
Probably August of last year, I saw my first in-person suspension, but I've heard about it throughout the web, and there's a body suspension forum and everything that I've seen it on, and I've been ready to try it myself.
And glad to find a team to work with?
Yes. Glad to find a great team to work with. They're like family to me. I mean, I love them all to death, and we work great.
Well, and I'm hoping you're also interested in getting the word out about this whole issue and raising the issue about cleanliness and safety, too.
Yes, because there's a lot of scratchers out there that put a bad name for us. We're trying to put in a good name to show that it's not a bad thing, and it's great. It's an endorphin rush.
Scratchers?
Scratchers up. People who work out of their house. People who don't follow the legal aspects of all of this.
That's a new word for me. Okay. Well, but I understand. You're right. You want to say this is a wonderful thing. It's important to so many people for so many different ways, different kind of pleasure, etc. But you don't do it don't try this at home, right?
No, do not try this at home. Be with a professional group, like a team or a professional set of people that know what they're doing.
Just like a lot of those spiritual journeys, you need to have someone to guide you through.
Yep, you got to have people there to help you. You can't do it by yourself. It's too much to do by yourself.
We're going to cut over to Karen Krause, who has an interview with Willow.
All right, Michelle, thank you. I am here with Willow, and we are going to get a little more in-depth with some questions. There are so many types of jewelry out there these days, and I know that one of the big trends, because it's cheap, is the acrylic. Yeah. But I've been reading and I've been hearing from people that acrylic is not really the way to go. I mean, that's a piece of plastic.
It actually breaks down in your body, and a lot of it's actually got toxins in it, and it can cause cancer, and that's already been proven. In some states, they already have warning labels on certain jewelry saying this is cancerous, this may cause birth defects in your child if you wear this, or, it's pretty extreme.
So if you're spending the money on a piercing, you should probably spend the money on quality jewelry as well.
Quality jewelry, something that a doctor would use rather than what my car's made out of. We all see what happens to cars over time, and they rust. It discolors people's skins, they tarnish. I've seen people come in with green bellies or black noses where it's permanently stained.
Yeah, because it's not just, you think, oh gosh, I'm just putting a hole in my nose, and it's so tiny, it's just a tiny little stud, but that can really have an effect on your body, your overall health. I mean, that gets into your bloodstream.
Yep.
It can be a serious thing, and you have to take it seriously, not just, oh, hey, I'm going to go get my nose pierced today.
Yep.
There needs to be some thought in it.
And there, you know, you kids can hop online. I can go to the cheap catalogs too, where you're paying, you know, pennies to maybe $1 for each piece of jewelry, and there's reasons that that stuff's so cheap, you know. And not only that, we're sending a lot of our money out of the country by buying these products too. And as far as the jewelry that I get, I like to keep it here in the U.S. because, I mean, it's our country. Even the local glass blowers, I get some of my stuff from them to, you know, help them out too.
So what materials are you using? What do you stock in the store?
I use F136 implant grade titanium ELI. I use implant grade 138 stainless steel. And there's a difference with stainless steel because not stainless steel, but surgical steel. Surgical steel, the people get confused because it says surgical before it, you know, versus my car's made out of surgical steel, so obviously that's not a good metal. When it comes to doctors, it comes to what the piece of metal's made out of, you know, what components were put into that metal and how it's going to react with the body. I use niobium, which is a hypoallergenic metal. I use natural, like, horns and bone, wood, different exotic woods. And that's only in healed piercings. And then I do some different silver and gold plated brass. But everything that I have here is good for the body and not going to cause any bad effects over time.
Because a lot of these things, you're talking about things that you actually would find in an operating room. You know, if someone needs a knee replacement,
Yep.
that's the type of metal that they're putting into their knee.
That's exactly
That's what
I'm
you're
using.
using.
Yep. Versus, like I said, what a car would be made out of, or a tractor or something like that.
Right. Okay. Tell me about some of the laws. I know that you have been a big proponent of actually getting some of the laws stricter. You know, you don't really hear a lot of business owners saying, I want stricter laws.
Yes.
But when it comes to this industry, my understanding is that there is no actual federal regulation on the books. Is that correct? Is it coming down to states making these decisions?
It's coming down to states making decisions. As far as right now, we don't have to have a bloodborne pathogens. We don't have to have a CPR, AD, or any training behind what we're doing. It just comes down to if that person lets you work in their studio, or that person goes and opens up their own studio and just goes, pays the money, and opens up shop and starts working. So, I mean, there's no like, hey, I need to get, or you need apprenticeship or so many hours. You know, even with a hairstylist, you have to put in so many hours and spend so much money on school and, you know, and keep advancing. And I think they even have to have their bloodborne pathogens. And that definitely should be necessary. And we need to have people come in here and watch what we're doing, actually sit down with the procedure. Like I said, I didn't say it to you, but I've never had somebody come into my studio and watch me change my gloves or make sure I'm working with blood properly, or, you know, is my stuff getting sterilized properly or decontaminated the proper way. So these are huge issues. I mean, they even have issues in hospitals, and they have millions of dollars to spend on making sure people are safe, and people are still coming out with MRSA and things like that. So
you are licensed, though, correct?
I'm licensed.
You're licensed to be able to do this.
Yep, and
Okay.
I do go out and get my bloodborne pathogens. I go far beyond what I'm asked of, the way that my shop is and the education that I go through every year. So I've gone out to the Association of Professional Piercers conference and taken as many classes as I possibly could fit in my boatload. I went out to Vegas and took in different, you know, scarification classes and different body suspension classes. You know, going out and working with suspension teams and going down to Dallas.
What do we need to do to have some more regulation, and why is this such an unregulated industry these days when it's so popular?
I think it's just tabooed a lot. in other states like California and Colorado, and where health inspectors are going out to conferences like the APP where they have free training. I've seen that make a huge difference in the way that they're looking at their shops, and they're not allowing people to pop up with no education, and just being there, you know, and getting involved with what's going on in the studios. You know, I think it's, like I said, it's just taboo to some people still, and they don't think it affects them, when it does affect them in one way or another. It could be their niece, it could be their daughter that, you know, runs off and just gets pierced. You know, at 16 years old, you can get your ears pierced. They could end up in a dangerous place, and you're still responsible for them at that point, and you should feel a little bit responsible. I guess I'm not responsible, but people need to be educated a little bit more openly as far as doing things like this, being on the news, putting it in the health inspectors' faces in the state, and trying to get them to come and do something about what's going on. People are getting diseases, MRSA, hepatitis, and I've walked into multiple shops where I've seen people touch their garbage cans, touch their sink, bloody sinks, putting blood in places where they're not supposed to be putting them. You know, I'm just, it's basically like a hospital here, you know. It's not to that level, but we're dealing with blood, and bad things can happen if blood isn't taken care of properly.
So what are you doing to push the legislature and push the government to actually step in and start looking at this more seriously?
Do things like this. For the last probably 5 years, I've been at the health department pretty much begging them to step in and go to these classes that I'm talking about, and be involved with us, and try to educate them as they walk through my door. You know, I don't want the health inspector to be like, yeah, this place does it a little bit better, you probably won't see this in the rest of the town. You know, like as far as the way that my dirty and clean room are set up, the way everything's organized, the passion that I take behind it, you know. And if they need to know what we know to a certain level, because if they don't know, then they're not ever going to know. It's like you walking in and saying, okay, I'm inspecting you. You know, how do you know what to look for? Do they have their bloodborne pathogens to be able to walk around and touch things? Do they have the training to be able to sit in on a piercing and know what to look for?
So you are in contact with the local health department, and you're
Yes.
working with them, and they've obviously been in your shop, or you wouldn't be licensed and you wouldn't be here.
Yep.
So obviously, you know, by them giving you the license to practice, they're saying that you're doing things well.
Yes.
So it's now just a matter of maybe getting the public involved and making them take a firmer stance, or making them push the federal government to be a little more strict, because we know there are places in the world that are still following the old school methods.
I think that we have so many huge issues in the world and in our country that it gets pushed aside. I think that they think that there's more important things, when it is a huge issue. Like you said, a lot of people are getting pierced. This could be, you know, if somebody doesn't do their job right, somebody comes in, has hepatitis, you don't decontaminate your area properly, you do 20 piercings for the rest of the day, all 20 of those people have hepatitis, or even possibly even longer than that. So,
Including putting your piercers at risk.
and put your piercers at risk as well.
Yep.
So
Okay.
to even work in my studio, you have to have your bloodborne pathogens and be trained by me working with blood. Besides that, because a lot of the bloodborne pathogens classes that we have to offer in this area are not directed towards our industry, and can be looked over very easily. You know, it's, you know, hop online, pay $20 for a bloodborne pathogen certificate. Are you going to be any smarter at the end of that? Maybe, maybe not. You know, is it going to pertain to what we're doing? Maybe, maybe not. You know, will they act and do the things that they've been taught? Maybe, maybe not. So.
And speaking of all the equipment and the training that you've been through, I know that the 5 holes in my ears came with a piercing gun.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a piercing gun in your shop?
There will never be a piercing gun in my shop. It destroys tissue. I've seen multiple people come in here with reconstructed ears from the piercing gun, deformed ears, shattered cartilage. More times than one, I'm sure you've heard it, where they've shot it into somebody and have to push it through the rest of the way because it got jammed or whatever. Or using it on other body parts that other than the earlobe, which is still dangerous and definitely shouldn't be in a cartilage area.
It's not a sterile way to do piercings anymore.
You can't autoclave a piercing gun, and even one-time use, it'd have to be sterilized in a manner. And it was designed to take cattle, and somehow it evolved into us using it. I mean, they're made a little bit differently, but it's not clean. The piercers that are using them are taking like a half-an-hour class of a video and practicing on teddy bears, and they use alcohol as far as like wiping down their station and stuff like that, which does not kill hepatitis. And I'm not sure about MRSA, but I know that alcohol does not kill everything, and that's why I use the stuff that I do as far as decontaminating my area.
So like anything, techniques have evolved. We've learned over time that even though the gun may look like something that's high-tech and nice and easy to use, it's not the way to go. That's not the safe way to do it anymore.
No, not at all.
Okay.
And you're pretty much not really putting the sharpest object through your ear. Some of them are shooting the earring straight into the piercing, so that's placing a lot of trauma on that ear. And
so needles? Is that what you're using?
Needles are the way to go.
Okay.
It's gonna cut through there rather than blast through it. I mean, anybody that's seen somebody get shot, or you shoot something and the front is just a little hole, while the back is all blown out, and that's exactly what that is doing to your body. And the reason that they even are able to they have absolutely nobody coming in and inspecting them, because the ear is not even considered really part of the body in Wisconsin.
Really?
So that's how it gets it goes on, so nobody's coming in. And even if, I don't know, like I said, we don't have it the best either here with our regulations, would it make a difference? Maybe.
So what are the ages these days for piercings?
There's no age on the ear whatsoever. As far as until you're 16, you have to have your parent. But after 16, then that kid is able to go and get a ear piercing of any sort.
Okay.
Cartilage, earlobes. And with the cartilage, you're still growing with a lot of, you got a few years of growing, you're doing cartilage piercings. Well, your body's going to grow, and depending on that piercing, if you get an industrial bar in your ear, that possibly could end up not being long enough, or maybe it grows a little bit differently. And that's kind of why I like people to be a little bit older, even with navels and things like that, because their body's just not fully developed. I mean, granted, most of those kids are probably going to go do it on their bus or whatever, and that kind of, or they're at their friend's house, or maybe they'll get into a crappy shop that just doesn't really care about what they're, they'll do anything to get that business. So it's a tough subject. You don't want that person to go out and do these things to themselves, but all I can do is just kind of sit back and educate them why not to.
Right.
Tell them about the MRSA, and you're probably not going to get hepatitis from piercing yourself, but you still put yourself at risk of staph and other than MRSA.
All right, we'll send it back to you, Michelle.
We're back here with Jasmine. You've had your suspension. How do you feel it went?
It could have went better, but I think it went great, honestly. I tore, so I could have stayed up longer. But it happens.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that in the audience that I get a profound impression of is the support network around you and supporting all the people that are doing the suspension. I presume that is, got to be a really gratifying feeling for you when you're doing this.
Yep, like I said, we're a community. Everyone helps everyone, and it makes everything go much smoother when everyone's, working towards a common goal, making sure we get up off the ground and everything goes smoothly.
What is it in you that, you chose an interesting position? You went with your knees. Any particular sense of why you chose that part of your body? Is that, symbolic to you, or was it just kind of fun?
It was my first actual suspension that I did was my knees, so I did it again with less hooks this time, which is a lot more weight on each hook, so it's a lot more stressful, but I had a lot of fun. I mean, it was great.
And you just, that's just where your mind went when you wanted to do a suspension, huh?
Yep.
And everybody's different.
Yep. Everyone different. Everyone has different, I guess, pain tolerances and how they feel comfortable going up. Knee is like one of my most comfortable ones I've done so far.
Did you get any impression from anyone else who's been doing the suspending today?
Like?
Well, they also kind of, I guess I one of the gals who did the one where she was in a sitting position just seemed very high, really ecstatic.
It's an adrenaline rush. It's like bungee jumping or skydiving. It's like you get that high, that natural high, the adrenaline, and it's beautiful. It's great. I love it.
So we've come back to talk to Dan. After you've gone and done the kavadhi, we were able to watch your demonstration. That's quite an experience you went through. It was actually very beautiful apparatus you had, too. Was that all your design?
Yeah, actually, Will and I built the whole thing ourselves. We straightened all the titanium. I hand polished it and sanded it myself, and then we anodized it, and then put all the flowers on today ourselves. So yeah, it's all our design.
Well, it was very beautiful, and you said that there's a strong Eastern influence in that particular piercing.
Yeah, there is. It's like I said, it's a big Indian, and it's big over in Thailand. It's big over there. Like I said, it's a little bit spiritual, but it's not. Theirs is more spiritual. This is more performance based, so this is more just for show. But it was still good. I still had a really good time. I enjoyed it.
Well, you were carrying a ritual burden, and that's kind of what it was about. And did you feel like you were carrying, the burden of the world, or did you sense the flowers or the flavor of the fruit? Or
I don't know about the burden of the world, but I mean, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I know I could see everybody else was enjoying it. Lots of pictures, so just good. I'm feeling really good right now.
Kind of doing this kind of slow, cool little dance going on there.
I wanted to try and go faster, but the spears weren't big enough, so every time I tried going faster, they popped out, and we had to put them back in. And didn't feel very good, but, you suck it up and you go through it, so.
Well, we really appreciate that kind of demonstration. Are there other forms? The kavadhi was certainly the most elaborate. Certainly we're seeing lots of different kinds of suspensions here tonight. Anything else out there that you're thinking you're going to try?
I don't know. I think we're just going to do suspensions for the rest of the night. I would really like to suspend at some point, but I don't think that's going to be in the books tonight, so we'll see when that happens.
Well, it's a very busy night. You've got quite a lot of people here. I imagine you got a lot of interesting comments.
Oh, lots. I'm glad that there was a pretty good turnout tonight. So.
And I've also heard that the various communities that are involved here always have these projects and are learning from them. They learned a lot of things in this event too.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here, and I mean, we just try to learn from each other. It's fun. Everybody gets together and they do their thing. So I don't know. We're just having fun doing what we do.
Well, and you're also all supporting each other. You can really sense the community in this whole aspect.
That's what we try to do in the community. We try to support each other, and we try to, put each other out there and get everybody known.
learned an awful lot at this demonstration of piercing, flesh hook, and suspension. We've seen a lot of people come through that have been interested in the event. Clearly, it's a somewhat controversial practice. It's part spiritual practice, part ecstatic dance, part art. But I think a lot of people have an awful lot of neat stuff to take away from this, a lot of learning. You can see that there's really a loving and nurturing community surrounding the practice. So, for an event like this in Eau Claire, I think that it speaks well to the community that we can host something like this and learn from these kind of experiences, watch it, and perhaps even you will have been moved by some of what you've seen here. Certainly we like sharing all kinds of happening here in the Chippewa Valley. So for Chippewa Valley Community Television, Valley Talk, this is Michelle Bayless signing off.
And presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television. Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.